Hi everyone, I'm back to show you some Revit. We're going to be jumping into the first project for AE-221. Let's go straight into it. Let me share my screen here. We're going to be using Revit. So you're going to want to open Revit here. And once you have it open, we're going to click on New. And we're going to go ahead with the Imperial Multidiscipline. Don't have to change anything here. It's going to go with the project. These are just pre-made templates by Revit. We're going to hit OK. The template does come with some things that we don't need, so we're going to get rid of them, okay? So right as you open here, this is the main window in Revit. You can use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. You can click on the wheel to move it around. I have this nifty little app here to help you see what I'm clicking, what I'm pressing. So hopefully that will help us along the way. So let's go ahead and select these and hit delete. These are reference planes that we are not necessarily using. We can also get rid of these scope boxes as well as this section, okay? Section views are important. We do use them in Revit. In this case, it's already pre-placed. It might not be where we want it. When we do want to create one, we can place wherever we want. So this one that's along with the template is not necessarily, so I'm gonna also delete that one. It's gonna tell us that the view along with the mark here is gonna be deleted, and that's okay. I'm also going to delete these. We can place these later. The north can be important for sure. This one is only for an 1/8 scale, and if you change your drawing from an 1/8 scale, this is not going to change with it, so it's kind of useless. I'm going to delete it as well. There's also another scope box that's hidden behind this line. What we're going to do here is on the Properties tab, we're going to scroll down until we see Extents, and in scope box it says Views Overall. Now this, for some reason, doesn't let us use this tool here. And this is a Revit 2024 thing, but to fix it, we're just going to change it to none. Now we're able to use this tool. That's for later, I'll show you. But we're going to use the hide crop region to get rid of that black box and then unveil this last scope box that was hidden, okay? I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And this tool, you can either leave it on or off. Doesn't really matter. We're going to be working inside this box, okay? First thing that's very important with every project are grid lines. These grid lines, both structural and non-structural components can go into these grid lines. They're very helpful to make sure that all your measurements are correct within your drawing. So this is the first tool that we're going to be using. Right on the Architecture tab, we're going to go to Datum, and it says Grid here. And that's the tool that we want, okay? Whenever you hover over any tool in Revit, if you give it a few seconds, it's going to pop up. A little description is going to pop up, and that's really, really helpful. For the tools that you guys haven't used that, I do recommend that you take your time and give it a little read. Okay, what does this do? I will obviously be telling you what the ones we're going to be using, but if you want to explore and tools that you haven't used yet in further projects, make sure that you take a peek and see what it does, okay? So we're going to click on Grid here. Let me also pull up the drawing. We're going to be basing everything off of this drawing, okay? This is the building that we're going to be modeling. Sorry if I didn't introduce that. Yeah, so I created this building to show you guys all the aspects of Revit that I know. Nothing too complicated, pretty much just introducing all the basics that I could possibly stick into one model. But yeah, let's go into the floor plan. We're going to need grids, right? We can see it in A110, we can see it in A120, we can also see it in A200. Let's use this sheet because everything is a little bit clearer here. There's not much on this sheet. We see that we have grid 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the horizontal. Then we have A, B, C, and D and the vertical there. Okay. Let's go back to our Revit. Click on the grid tool. We're just going to go from left to right. Right to left also works. Either way, we're going to put down 1, and then you're going to come down below the first point that you put down, 2, 3, and then you're also placing exactly where you left off. If you're having trouble making it straight, holding Shift makes it so that it's straight no matter what. Okay. So we got 3, 4. Now, Revit does that automatically. So when we put this one down, it's going to be 5. What we can do is we're going to click on here and make it A. And as soon as we make one A, Revit already knows that the next ones are not going to be numbers, and it's going to go ahead and give us B, C, and D. Now, if you went left to right or right to left, it doesn't matter, because if you click on the grid line itself, you have these empty boxes here, and these allow you to put the marker on one side or the other. On a further project that you guys are going to work on, you're going to have some grid lines that have a marker on one side and not on the other, so you're able to do it through these boxes, okay? And to drag the lines back, so let's say I don't like how far down this goes, you're going to use this hollow circle, and you're going to be able to move that around, okay? Now, we have these grid lines. We're also going to need levels, okay? To put down a level, you're going to have to go to an elevation. So we're going to go under the project browser here. We're going to click on a plus sign on elevations here, on the architectural views. And we're going to pick any of these elevations. So let's say we go to east. So if we go to east, now we have these elevations, and we also see the grid lines that we put down. These grid lines, right, they go really far off. So what you can do is, like I said, use those hollow circles to move them a little bit closer in. And we're essentially just going to try to copy what we have on our drawings, right? So if we go back to the drawing and we go to the elevations here, we're going to be able to see that we have a ground floor, a flat roof, and a tower, okay? Revit always gives you 2 floors, because to build a wall, you need a base and you need a top. So Revit automatically starts with those 2. We're going to make sure that we rename what we have, and then we're going to add the new one in, okay? So we have ground floor, flat roof, tower. So we have 1, 2. We're going to click on level under the datum section in the architecture tab. So we're going to click on level. Same thing, we're going to line it up, extend it until it matches the rest, and there we have it. Now I'm going to come here, I'm going to make it ground level. Where's the ground floor? Ground floor, there it is. You can just click on it and change it. So we're going to have ground floor, flat roof, and tower. Now, these are the names for our levels. And the levels are all depicted as floor plans on our property browser, okay? And the tower one that we added, which is new, did change the name, but the ones that were already there don't change. But we want to change these. I've seen a lot of students don't change these, and then they get confused. What are they working on, right? So we're gonna go ahead and make L1 ground floor, and we're gonna go ahead and make L2 flat roof. And now we have our levels to work with. Ground floor is at 0. Flat roof should be at 10 feet. Tower should be at 25 feet. So we're just going to go right ahead and make this 10 feet. And to change the name, you click on the name. Change the height, you click on the number. 10, enter. In Revit, you don't have to really do 10 feet, space, 0 inches. It registers spaces. So if I did 25, 6, and half, just with spaces, it would realize that 25 feet, 6 inches and a half. Okay. We're just going to do 25. So 0, 10, 25. Something that's very important is dragging our grid lines above these. What happens is, let's say I have this grid line below the tower level. If I go to the tower floor plan, we're not going to have any grid lines here. But if I come back and drag them back up, now you actually see them here. And the reason that you only see 1, 2, 3, and 4 is because we're looking at east, and these. If we were to look in 3D, take a peek here. We fixed east, but east and west, but north and south still really long. So we're gonna go. We added the levels on east, so it's gonna be right on west as well. There you go. We can pull this a little bit further, just so it doesn't overlap. And then if we fix east and west, we're gonna have to fix north and south. Same thing here. Just drag these up. And be very careful here, because if you click on something else, you might, if you click on 3D, it changes. It could make it so that they're not connected. So just be careful, make sure that you're highlighting the hollow circle to move them. I'm gonna bring it all close. And bringing this all close is just really, once you look in 3D, it's all within a smaller portion. And it's not really occupying a very large area. When you build your model, you're gonna be able to see, okay, the model is completely within this area that we put the grid lines and the levels. Okay, so we got east, west, north, south, those are all good. what we're gonna do here is I put down the grid lines, but they are not properly measured. So let's do that. So the measuring tools are gonna be under annotate, and we usually use aligned. And since we usually use aligned, we can actually get it here from the quick access bar. So it doesn't matter where you are, it's always gonna be up here. And what we're gonna do is we can either click on two separate ones and then just click off and it's gonna be fine. Or we can click on multiple at a time. We can click on multiple at a time. And then if you click out of it, it's gonna put it down. It makes no difference. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click on all of these. Nope. Yeah, if you hit enter, it doesn't work. It's a little bit weird. So you just have to click out of it. Click on the empty space. There we go. Okay. So these distances should be, let's take a peek at moving here. We have these measurements all down. Every measurement that you're gonna need is gonna be in drawing. If you don't see it in one sheet, it's gonna be in a different sheet. Okay, so from 1 through 2, 3, and 4, we have 15, 10, 10, and A to B is 15, 10, 10 as well. So let's put these down. So the way that Revit works is you don't click on a measurement to change it, right? So let's say this between A and B is 24. You can't just click on 24 and change it. You have to change what you want to move, right? Because 24 is between two lines. Do you want this line to move or do you want this line to move? That's what that means when I say you don't click on a measurement, right? So I want A to stay put. That means I'm going to click on B and now I can click on this and make it 15 feet. Then I want everything to keep coming to the left. So I'm going to click on C, make this 10. Click on D and make this 10 as well. And let me just check that that's correct. 15, 10, 10. Yep. And then same thing here. And just like before, we're going to have to drag these right back in here again. I want everything to come towards 1. Okay. I want everything to come towards 1. So I'm going to click on 2, make this 15. Click on 3, make it this distance between them 10. And then 10 once again. Then I'm just going to adjust all this so it's a little bit closer. And you see the difference between linking them is that they move together as opposed to this one, which I put separately. All right. And I'm just going to open East one more time here so that we can see it did mess up a little bit. And I'm just going to put these back in place. All right. Now that we have these, let me take a look here. I'm looking at the practicum guide that I made for you guys for you to follow along, and I'm following along as well just so I know what I'm trying to show you guys next. So we looked at these. Now let's look at editing assemblies. Okay. So 3D model. There's different types of 3D model. Okay. There's 3D modeling where you're simply making masses. For example, you just made a box and you can put multiple boxes together and stretch them to make walls and make a hole in the box to make a window. But in Revit itself, you don't just have boxes or any masses, you have assemblies, right? So walls in Revit, they actually have properties, and you can see here, you have multiple different types of walls and they can have multiple layers. And that's what we're going to be working with. We're going to go ahead and on the architecture tab here, we're going to click on wall. And what it's going to do here is going to open, it opens up to a basic wall that's ready to be placed down. But what we want to do is we want to come here and I'm going to show you guys how to put the exterior wall. Okay. Now we're going to use, let's look at our Bluebeam here. I made these schedules that show you exactly what you need. And you're going to be referencing these a lot. Okay. So we're going to look at walls. So we're going to find the wall schedule here. Door, window, roof, wall. Okay. So we're going to use the exterior brick on CMU. And we're going to call it W01. So back to Revit. Oops. Back to Revit. Once you open wall, you can click down here on this arrow to select the walls. And we're going to pick exterior brick over CMU. Brick on CMU. Here it is. Now, for further projects, you guys are going to have to build your own assemblies from zero. for this project, we're gonna keep it very simple, really just trying to show you guys the basics, but I still want you to learn how to edit the wall. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna change one thing about the wall, and that's gonna be the brick. So we clicked on the exterior brick on CMU, and that's what it's selected now. Under here, you can see the edit type, and that's what we're gonna click on. Oops, open somewhere else. Okay, this is what shows up when you click on edit type. Whenever you're making your own wall, don't get rid of the walls that Revit have because you might want them back. So you're always gonna hit duplicate, and then you're gonna put your own name on it. In this case, this is the wall W01 per the drawing, and we're gonna hit OK. And now that you have this wall, W01, all right, it's gonna change the name here. And when you're editing it, it's gonna edit this wall and not the original brick over CMU. Okay, so I just want to show you guys how to change at least one thing about this wall. So whenever you click on edit type, you're gonna be able to access all these different properties, but we're gonna change one of the structure values, okay? So we're gonna hit edit, and this is essentially the wall if you were to cut it and look at it from up top, okay? So if you look on the top part here, it says exterior. If you see here, it says interior. So if we take a peek, the wall goes from the inside out. It has gypsum wallboard, so drywall. Then it has metal furring. Then it has the CMU blocks, and then it has damp proofing, rigid insulation, a layer of air, and then the brick on the outside. That's how this works. And then you're able to insert more layers, move them up and down, get rid of them, and you can assert a function to them. So for example, the brick is just a finish, whereas air is a thermal layer. And this is for more complicated things within Revit, because since Revit has all of these properties, you could technically calculate how much air goes through a wall, or you can calculate how much the temperature that can go through a wall. Like Revit can actually do calculations. We're not going to be dealing with that, but just explaining what we are going to look into is material, right? So like I said, you're going to make a whole wall from zero. In this case, let's just change one little thing about it. So where it says finish here, material brick common, it doesn't show when you hover over it, but you can see this box, and this is the 3 dots, okay? So you're going to click on the 3 dots. It'll show up when you click apparently. And when you click on these 3 dots, this is the window that's going to show up. Oh my, it's really big. Here it is. And it's actually going to have all the properties of the material that we have selected. So I have brick common. You may not have used render appearance selected. You should select it. Your choice, but it just gives the material the basic color that it looks like. So this brick is going to have this color. The surface patterns here, it just means like when you're looking at it from an elevation, what is going to look like? Because technically it could just be a color, it could just be nothing. But the brick itself here has these patterns that help us identify the brick in between all the other different materials. Like I was saying, I'll let you guys change this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to look up brick. When you look up brick, these are the 2 bricks that are going to be loaded into this template, right? So it's just common brick. Of course, if you click on appearance, you can see the difference. It's barely any difference. It's just the way that they're laid, right? But if you want to change this brick, what you can do is, if this is closed, which probably will be the material libraries, you're going to click on these 2 arrows, and then you can make this a little bit bigger so they can see. And essentially, this is all the materials that are available in the Revit libraries, right? So in the files that are installed in Revit, but not the files that are within this project itself, right? This save file that you create. So you can look up brick, and this is going to be all the materials available for the Revit files. And I'm going to let you guys pick whatever brick you want from here, and just make to make one thing different about your projects. You guys can choose whatever brick. Now, to use a brick from here, you can't just click on it and hit OK, because these bricks are not loaded into the project, right? So you're gonna have to hit the up arrow here. Once you hit the up arrow, once you hit the up arrow, it's essentially loading into the project, right? We're just gonna make sure that graphics, again, using the render appearance, and just to make sure that we have the same properties as the regular brick, which has a pattern here and a diagonal pattern. We're just gonna copy those. So click on here. Everything's open in a different window. I know that these are a bunch of pattern types. You're just gonna have to look for it. I know for a fact that it's in model. So I'm just gonna open model, click on brick for this pattern. Then for the foreground, I know that it's diagonal up. I'm gonna click on that. Those are the two patterns that we need. And now we have a brick that's different. And now once we hit OK, you're gonna see up here, it changed from the brown brick to gray. Okay. So next up we have, all right, now we're gonna actually start putting these down. Yeah. Oh, first of all, since we do have the grids in place, and I did mention that they serve for structural and non-structural materials components, we're going to do columns because that's what the grids mostly refer to, the columns, right? Because a lot of things are based off the columns. The columns hold the weight of the building. All the joists go to the sorry, I'm blanking. I'm just back from the summer. Give me a break. I'm forgetting the name of things, but joists go to, well, everything goes back to columns, and that's why they're important in grids, okay? So within the architecture tool, we're gonna click on columns here, and we're once again gonna go back to our blue beam because we want to see so let me just make sure that I'm sharing here. Sorry, I thought I unclicked it. We're going to make sure that we check for the column type because we don't know what necessarily, I know what it is, but for you who's starting to model it and you're unfamiliar, you're going to have to find this information within the drawing. And it so happens that in this video, I'm essentially going to give it all up, but at least you get a sense of how to look for things, right? So for the columns here, on the first floor, you don't see any measurements. There's a detail that encloses the columns here, and we can click on it. Of course, it's not going to work because I'm recording. Amazing. Anyway, that leads to this detail here. And we do see the columns are 1.8 by 1.8, but that doesn't give us the materials or any other characteristics. And those characteristics are actually going to be shown in the structural column schedule here. So we have 4 columns. They're all precast square columns, and they're 20 by 20. They all start in the ground floor and in the flat roof. They have different offsets. You don't have to worry about this now. I will show you later. But yeah, let's put down some precast square columns, 20 by 20. So I clicked on columns under architecture. We're going to click down on the arrow here and find our concrete columns, and it's a 20 by 20. There we go. And we're just going to go ahead and put them right in the center of the grids. Now, it's telling me here that none of the created elements are visible in floor plan. That is because when I put the column down, it had a depth of 9 feet starting from the flat roof. And not starting from the flat roof. It just had a depth of 9 feet. So it's not showing on the floor plan because it shows from the bottom up, right? So we're going to go ahead and change from depth to height. And it's going to stay unconnected. So it's going to make sure that it does go, it goes up to the flat roof. There it is. Let's take a peek in 3D here because I think I put 2 columns there. There we are. Okay, let's restart. So on the ground floor, I was probably in the wrong level. That's what it is. So on the ground floor, column, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have selected height and flat roof. And we're going to click on these 4 columns, which are going to be B, 2, and 3, and then C, 2, and 3. Okay. As simple as that. Now we have our columns. You can take a peek in 3D again. Just so you know, if you hold Shift and the wheel, it lets you rotate your 3D view. And then if you just use the middle click, you can move it around. Back to the ground floor. Okay, now onto walls. So back to the wall that we just created. Okay, so W01. Same, just like the columns, we're going to be using the Gridlines. So I'm just going to go around the exterior and put down these walls. And again, you would be looking at your blue beam here to try to see where it's coming from. Right, so the walls go all around the exterior here. And what we're going to do is, as of now, the walls just they just look like a mass, right? They just look like one large rectangle and doesn't really mean much. We're gonna come down here and we're gonna change our detail level from coarse to medium. You can use fine. I recommend fine for when you're taking a screenshot or making an actual sheet showing anything that has more details, or you can just put it in fine whenever you're doing sheets. But for working within Revit, medium is going to be fine because these projects can get really heavy, really taxing on the computer, and you don't want the program to slow down or anything to crash. So just use medium. That works. You can always just use hidden frame as it is. I do recommend that you use at least consistent colors so that you can see you can properly identify what you're looking at, because they're gonna have different colors. In this case, I did choose a very gray brick. So I'm gonna go back to the red just to show you guys for the modeling, for you to be easier to understand the levels, right? But having the color gives you this idea of what's where, right? So we changed our detail level from coarse to medium, the display option to consistent colors. One more thing that we're going to do here is we're going to apply this tool right here that's called thin lines. Now, thin lines, it's not, you don't have to use it, but it's very useful. For example, in this case, the wall has a gypsum wallboard in the interior. And when you have thin lines disabled, the exterior line is so thick that you don't see the difference between the walls there. So I prefer to leave it off. I don't think I ever turn it on, but it's your choice. Everything's your choice. If you put a wall, so I started putting the wall from right to left, but if you put from right to left, and if you place the wall from left to right, it changes the direction that you're placing it, right? But that's not an issue because you can always just use this button to flip it, right? So if you build your wall backwards and you only notice once you turned on your detail levels, if your wall is backwards, all you gotta do is flip it, okay? No issue, stays in the same place. Now, when you're placing down a wall, we have all these informations over here. So it has the height, it has the location line. So all these walls we place directly from the center on the grid lines, but you could put from the exterior, and then you're gonna have a wall that's the exterior of it is on the grid lines instead. You have all these options. You also have a radius if you're doing a curved wall. You can unclick chain so that every time you click a wall, it doesn't stay together as opposed to this. Right. Yeah. Let's move on. What else we got here? So we put down the two walls. Another thing that we're gonna do now is measurement. Okay, so measurements are very important. In this case, these walls perfectly line up with the columns, with the grid lines, because like I said, purpose of this model is to just be an introduction. But if they weren't to line up with the grid lines, what you're gonna do is essentially you have to think this way. So grid lines are absolute. As long as you have your grid lines properly measured, everything can be measured off the grid lines, right? So since the grid lines are properly measured, we have 15, 10, 10, 15, 10, 10. That means that you can measure things off of it, like the wall. Like I mentioned, this wall is perfectly centered, so the measurement is going to be correct right away. And you're going to have this 93/4 between the outside of the wall and the grid lines. But in a different project, in your future project of the Steam services, it's not going to be the same case. It's not going to be as easy. So you just want to make sure that you put measurements everywhere. Make sure that you match the drawings, right? So if you open the drawing and there's a measurement somewhere, put the same measurement down. Because if you have the same measurement, you know it's right. And if you don't, you know there's a mistake somewhere. It's as simple as that. Doing the Revit project is essentially self-grading because you have the exact drawing, which is like an answer sheet, an answer key, and your job is just to model it, essentially copy it. And if it's right, if it matches, you're right, and if it doesn't, you're wrong. Very straightforward. Okay. If we open the 3D view, or if we open an elevation here, we're gonna notice that these walls They go too high. They're supposed to go from the ground floor to the flat roof, okay? So how do we fix this? So let's say you're in 3D. You can click on one wall, then hit Control, click on the next, and the next. Now you have all walls selected. The other option is going to be selection boxes. So very simple. If you select something from the left to the right, it's going to create this solid box that only selects things that are completely within this box, right? So I'm touching 4, 3, 2, 1, but I'm only completely enclosing tower, and that's why it's the only thing that it selects. As opposed to a box that comes from the right to the left that gets everything that it touches. As long as it touches it, it's selecting, right? So another option to select the walls here is going to be to just run across from the right to the left, and you're going to select a whole bunch of things. Now, how do you get just the walls from these bunch of things? And you might be saying, Daniel, it might be easier if I would have just done this, it would have been faster. Well, no, it's much faster if you just go like this. And then the two options that you're going to have are, if you have a lot of things, or if you're looking for something specific, you can go on filter. Oh, open somewhere else, excuse me. You can click on filter, and then you're going to be able to see everything that you selected and only select the things that you want, in this case, only the walls, right? Or you're going to have the drop down here, right? So your properties tab usually tells you exactly what you have, right? So if I click here, it's going to say grid, 4-inch bubble, quarter-inch bubble. If I select a bunch of things, it's just going to say that there's multiple categories. But you also have this drop down arrow that lets you pick the things that you chose, right? So I'm going to run across here, and then I'm just going to select walls. All of that, just select the walls, but just trying to learn you the different ways that you can do things. Once you have the wall selected, on the properties tab here, you're going to be able to see a bunch of different properties of the wall. The ones that we have to change, that we want to change, is where the wall starts and where it ends. Now, it does start at the ground floor, perfect. It has an offset of 0, perfect. It does start at the lower or higher than the ground floor. But the top constraint is currently unconnected, and then the wall itself is 20 feet high. That's not what we want. When we place a wall down, we could have changed that. But, oh, sorry, force of habit here. When you guys are doing this project, save it every time. I'm not going to save it here because that would just waste your time. But yes, back to it. If I were to place a wall, once you're putting it down here, once you select the wall itself, you can change where it's going to be right off the bat on the top here. But this video is going to be just me doing a bunch of things unorthodox just to show you, okay, you can do it this way, this way, this way. So again, have the wall selected. Once you do, what we're going to do here is we're just going to go to the properties tab where it says top constraint, and we're just going to change it to flat roof. Just like that, the walls now go to that level. In 3D, you're also able to move things up and down, and they can kind of snap with the right levels, right? So right here,
battery fully charged.
Sorry, my phone charger.
Plug charger.
So you can snap to the tower, snap to the flat roof, but it's a little bit harder. And at the same time, you wouldn't be doing it with all of them unless you selected this. No, if you selected, you can't even do it. So yeah, just multiple ways of doing the same thing. Now let's move on to making the rest of the walls. So we're gonna make the exterior wall of the tower, the interior walls enclosing the bathroom, and the wall between column B2 and B3. So I would pause the video and give those a try by yourself because I'm gonna do them really quick here. I would cut the video, but I'm not good at editing. So I'm just gonna do it really quick and you can just skip ahead. But I would recommend that you pause or just follow along, try to see if you can do it as quickly. It's not that much work, but yeah, let me put down the rest of the walls that we have, right? So we got wall. I know that if I open the blue beam, if I open the blue beam, I have my wall schedule here, and I know that my interior wall is a 6 1/8 of an inch partition to our, and that's going to be called P01. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to find that interior with this. I'm going to duplicate it, call it P01. And then I'm going to just put down a rough idea of where it is. I'm going to look back in our model here, find the detail for it. So in our sheet, I realized that we have this here. And we can click on the detail. I don't know why it's not letting me. But it's going to lead to this sheet right here. So it's going to be 7-4 typical, which means that both of them are 7-4 by 7-10 and an eighth. Okay. So let's go back to Revit. I'm going to have our measurements from here to here. Inside to the inside, as simple as the gypsum wall board. Then this one is 7, 10, and an 8, I believe. This one is 7-4. Close this one. It's also 7-4. 7, 10, and 8 is right. Yes. Okay. You can leave your measurements in place. I'm deleting them because I don't even know. I'm just deleting them. But you should keep them in place. I'm also going to put the same all in between this column here. Then I'm going to go to my flat roof. And I'm going to put down the same thing for the flat roof. Everything's going to have that really basic view. It's going to change it. And then just to make sure that it is correct with the drawing, the tower here is going to have a measurement of 16, 7.5 by 16, 7.5. There we go. Everything just matching the grid lines. Nothing too crazy. And I believe that's walls. Yes. Okay, so let's work on the floors, ceilings, and roofs. So back to the ground floor here. Okay, this is what we currently have for 3D. So we're going to start off putting down a floor on our ground floor. We're going to look at our we're going to look at our blue beam and find in the drawing sheets the details that we can about the floor. I put these helpful little drawing miniatures of the floor plans here just so you can see the different colors of the floor, right? You have 1, 2, 3 types of floors here, and these are flooring such as carpet and wood flooring and vinyl and whatnot. But the slab itself that the building sits on, it goes from the outside of the walls all around. And the details about this are going to be here in our floor schedule, right? So we have ground floor. It has no offset. The type is generic 12-inch, and it has a thickness of 1 foot, okay? So we're going to go back to Revit. We're going to go to floor. We're going to find the generic 12-inch, which happens to be the exact same that it's here. We can click on edit type just to check the thickness. It is a foot, so we're all good. And then what we're going to do here is once you click on floor, you're going to have all these measurements here, all these drawing tools, such as line, square, circle, ellipse, arcs. All these are pretty self-explanatory. These two are the ones that I want you to focus on. They're also self-explanatory, but one is called pick lines and the other is called pick walls, right? So whenever you're clicking, creating floors, you're usually just going to click walls, and that's going to allow you to encase them encase your area really easily. You're also able to choose whether you want the wall to be on the inside or the outside. In this case, I want it to be on the outside, but as the drawing shows, it goes to the actual outside of the wall, like all the way to the brick. So you can just click and drag the lines, or you could restart this. Well, not restart, but all I'm saying is from the start, you can use a square tool and go from one corner to the other. And right there, you're going to have your floor. The drawings don't show any offset. So just putting it down like that, you're good. Next floor that we're going to need. Next floor. Let's do the ceiling. The ceilings of the bathrooms. Okay, so you have the 2 bathrooms, and they both have ceilings. Now, when you put down a ceiling, you have to use a ceiling plan. Okay. Usually in the industry, they call these RCPs, reflected ceiling plans. So under the project browser, instead of a floor plan, we're going to go to ceiling plans, and we're going to click on L1. It didn't change its name, so we're going to change the name for it. And we're just going to call it ceiling plan because ceiling plan. The first floor is the only floor that has ceilings in this project. Like I said, only trying to show you guys basics. The bathrooms are the only places that have ceilings. Everything else is just exposed roof. So exposed ceiling. So I'm gonna go to ceiling plan L1, rename the ceiling plan. We're gonna click on our ceiling tool here. We're gonna find what type of ceiling we want to use in our project. So we're gonna go back to our Bluebeam, to our file, and we're gonna look at our ceiling schedule, and we only have one type, and it is the 2x2 ACT system, and it has a height offset 8 feet, so it's 8 feet from the floor. Okay, so we're gonna click here, 2x2. It has an offset of 9 feet. We can either change it before or after. Let's go ahead and change it before. And different from floors, you have your sketching tools, but you also have a automatic ceiling. Okay, so you click on automatic ceiling, it's gonna just put ceilings in an enclosed area. And since the 2 bathrooms are enclosed areas, you can just go ahead and click those, hit enter. Oh, don't hit enter because that's gonna activate it. But you can just click those, hit escape to get out of the tool. And if you look in 3D here, you have your ceilings in place, and they're gonna be at 8 feet. Okay, so we got the first floor, we got the ceilings. Let's do, let's do the floor on the tower. So we did the floor on the flat roof. On the ground floor, let's do the floor on the flat roof. So in this case, I am going to hit floor, and I'm gonna hit pick wall and just let it do the inside of the wall. Now, the reason that it's a little far back here is because we have different layers. It could, let me hit okay. Oops. You could drag it to just be before the drywall, but that won't make much of a difference here. To be honest, where our floor is for the tower is not that relevant as long as it is within the wall itself and not on the outside, because the walls on the outside are continuous. And we don't want any floor going between those. So I'm going to create this floor. And now if we look in 3D, you're going to notice that the walls that were together before are not together anymore. So these, you're going to hold shift and the wheel to rotate. And you're going to notice that once I created the floor, it lowered these walls to accommodate for the floor. But we don't want this to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to double click these walls. You're going to have 2 options. And these messages you can ignore. You're going to have 2 options. You can either double click the wall, or you can click on the wall and then hit edit profile. That's what we're doing. We're editing profile, right? And this is going to show you, okay, this is the outline of the wall. Let's go to the back here. And then you're going to notice that the top of the wall doesn't go back, doesn't line up with the bottom of the tower anymore. So we're just going to grab this line and put it right there. And it's going to complain about some constraints. We're going to remove them. And then we're just going to hit OK. And it's going to say that we're going to have to unjoin elements. We're going to hit OK to that as well. And now we have this layer back where it was. Next. So let's do the same thing to this wall. Double click it. Raise it just to the layer. Then hit enter. Now we're back and we're good. All right. Let's see. After we do this, let's create the flat roof itself. Okay, so let's go to the flat roof layer. And it's good that you can see an underlay on the front of the other level here. We're going to be able to see what we're doing. So we're going to, under the architecture tab in the build section, we're going to click on roof. Once we click on roof, we're going to draw the general shape that the roof has. So I know that the roof has general shape like so. Okay, so the way that these roofs are, actually I'm gonna do a quick. I'm gonna quickly show you how roofs work. Okay, so let's say I draw a square. If all of the squares are selected and I hit OK, then we create a hip roof. So every single side is sloped and they all meet in the middle in a line because it's a rectangle. If it was a square, it would meet at a point, but it meets on a line. This is a hip roof. If only 2 of these sides were sloped, and the way to select or unselect this is either here on the properties or on this little button here. So if only 2 of these are selected, then you're gonna have a gable roof, right? So you just have to see if you apply a slope to a side, it's gonna go up, and if you don't, there's not gonna be anything there, right? So in this case, there's only a slope on each of these sides, and that's why it ends up being this way. We're making a flat roof, and to those of you who didn't know this, flat roofs are not flat because you can't have water pooling on top of a building. That's extra weight, and that's risking water getting into the building. So every roof is sloped. Flat roofs just happen to be very, very little, just have a very small slope that you can't really notice when you're walking on it, but it is there, and water will run off of it. If we look on our blue beam, okay, and if we look here on our roof plan, you're gonna notice that it shows a slope with an arrow on both sides. And we do have a drain here. The drain is a great context clue for you to understand what's going on. So we have the 2 arrows, and they're showing that the roof goes towards the middle here, towards the middle, right? So our slope is gonna be, we have 2 options really. We have this line, right, the middle line or the exterior line. If our slope was in the middle line, it would technically slope away from it, and that would create weird, it would create essentially a different line in the middle here, but we just want the 2 sides to slope towards the middle so that they can go to the drain. So we're gonna put the slopes in the top line, and everything else doesn't need one. So I'm gonna hit Control to add all of these lines up, and then undefine the slope. And then the slope is also defined on the drawing here. It says 1/8 to a foot, so it's 1/8 to 12 inches. We're gonna go back to Revit, and where it says here 9 inches to 12 inches, we're gonna do 1/8 to 12 inches, and we're gonna hit apply. And that's our roof, okay. Let's take these again. Yep. So we got 1/8 to a foot, perfect. All right, so we created one. Oh, my mistake. And you guys might make this mistake as well. I didn't see what type of roof it was. I just put it down. So let's go back. And this is not an issue. In Revit, you can go ahead and change everything. So we're gonna go to our roof schedule here, and we have the 2 individual flat roofs, right? There are 2 because they have different slopes. So you build one, and then you build the second one. So we have these 2 flat roofs, and they're both insulation on metal deck, and they both have an offset of -1 inch. So that's very important as well. And I didn't do that. So look at that. Very good that we look at the information so now we can model it correctly. Okay. So click on the roof. Instead of basic roof here, it's going to be insulation on metal deck. And one thing that I missed was the base offset from level is going to be a -1 inch. Right? I did 1 inch there. I could also do -0 space 1. That also works. And I'm going to hit apply. Perfect. All right. Now, we have 2 options here. We either do the same thing all over again on the other side, or because they are symmetrical, we can just try to use this roof to put it there. And how we're going to do that? We're going to click on the roof, which is going to open the Modify tab. Whenever you click on anything, it's going to open the Modify tab, essentially. So you're going to click on the roof, and then we have this tool here under the Modify section called Mirror Pick Axis, right? So usually copy is going to be unselected here. Go ahead and select it. And we're going to pick this axis, and it's just going to put it down. I actually just realized this because on the, let's do it how I do it on the guide, because on the guide I also show you a different tool. But yeah, you can just mirror it by this side, or we can mirror it from this side, and then we can use the rotate tool here. And the rotate tool is going to usually rotate from the center of the object, but you can click on this button here to place a center of rotation, right? So I rotated it here, but I don't want to spin it. I want to actually rotate it by the tip of it here, so I can displace it. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click rotate, and then I'm going to hit place center of rotation, hit the bottom, hit the top, and then spin it until it's in place. Which now I realize it's hilariously so much more work than just mirroring by that axis, but see, you do and you learn. Okay, so we have these flat roofs in place, and let's take a peek in 3D. All right, so I'm gonna change to hidden line here just because it's so dark. And we're gonna be able to see how the roof looks. And it looks correct. It does have the -1 inch. It has the 1/8 to 12 inches slope. Let's just give that another check. So -1/8 to 12 inches. Okay, good. -1/8 to 12 inches. Double checking really helps. I made a mistake because this just says 1/8 to 12 inches, but that's going down. And that's because this does slope towards the center here, because like I just showed you guys before, if you put down a roof and you have slopes, it goes up. So we want the negative for it to actually drain the water, right? So let's go back to our Revit here. I'm just gonna hit Control to select both. And all I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna click in front of this symbol and put a negative there. And now our roof actually slopes to the center. Good, there we go. Okay, we have the sloped roof, but obviously it's above the wall. So what do? This area, as you can see from the model here, it's an accessible area. What do accessible areas need? It's a parapet, right? You can't really be up there if there's no protection. USA. So let's make sure that we have our parapets. For the walls that are not touching the tower, we can just go ahead, click on both of these. And for the top offset, we can go ahead and add 3 feet of offset. So the wall technically still goes from the ground floor to the flat roof, but it just happens to have a 3-foot offset. Sorry if I said inch, 3-foot offset. And I saw this in the elevation here. So if you look at your measurements, you have the 10 feet from the ground floor to the flat roof. And then from the flat roof to the top of the wall here, you also have the 3 feet. Okay, so that's our parapet. For the walls that are not touching this, it's the same idea as before, right? We can't just bring it up. We're going to double click it so that we can change the profile. And I'm going to use the split element tool here just to create a cut in the line. Now, unfortunately, you do have to separate these so that you can move them independently. Excuse me. If you cut the line, but then move, they will move together. So cut it, separate it, and I'll just move it up to the same level as the parapet. I'm going to hit the line tool here and create a line going down. And now this very, very useful tool here, the trim/extension corner. I'm going to use this tool to make this line and then this line connect. There we go. Look at that. Quick tip, the trim extend tool, it works on the side of the line you connect. So I'm trying to make a corner from this line to this one. If I click on this side, it's going to corner to this side. If I click here, it's going to do that. Okay. So do this. Once you're done with that, you're just going to hit the check mark there. And if we look in 3D, now we're all good to go. Let me hit that consistent colors. Same thing on this side. So I'm gonna hit left so I can see that properly. Create a cut on the line. Whoop. Split it. Bring it up to the level. And then create a different line here. And just use the corner tool to bring these together. All right, we're almost coming to a close here. We're essentially trying to enclose the building, right? So keep water from going in. Obviously the water can go from the top, but these walls also don't have any protection here. So what do we need? We need a parapet cap. To do that, we're gonna go to the build section of the architecture tab. And instead of clicking on wall, we're gonna hit this arrow and we're gonna use a wall sweep, okay? It's automatically gonna have this cornice here. We're gonna hit edit type and we're gonna see all these constraints that we can change. We're gonna take a peek at our blue beam again. Because guess what? We have a wall sweep schedule. And the details that it shows us is that it's a wall sweep. It is a cornice. It is made of aluminum. And it's a parapet cap precast 20 inches wide. Okay, so aluminum, 20 inches wide, parapet precast. Those are the two things that we have to change. So we have the cornice. We're going to hit edit type, duplicate it. I'm going to rename it to parapet cap. And then for material, like we just saw, it's going to be aluminum. There we go. Hit OK. And then for the profile, it's going to be a 20-inch wide parapet cap precast. And when you're putting these down, they can have two separate directions, but it's very weird because I can only, for example here, I can put it down on this side of the wall. I can't put it down on the other side. And if I click here, I can only put it on this side of the wall. So now they don't match. What you're gonna have to do is essentially just go around. So I'm gonna come to the back here, click on this corner. I can then click on this corner, and you see how they're lining up there. Perfect. I'm gonna keep spinning my model, click on this corner, spin it one more time, and click here, hit enter. Now we have our aluminum parapets. Now water can go in through there. The walls are brick on the exterior, but they are gypsum wallboard on the inside. So technically water can still come through here. Now models, you would have thought that they were perfect, but they're not. They don't have necessarily to show everything. There's things that are too nifty, too complicated to draw on a 3D model, and you can save time by just having a professional that has experience just make them on site. But that doesn't mean that the model has to ignore simple things, such as this outside wall here on the parapet being a gypsum wallboard. So let's fix that, because the wall properties are not going to change. But what we're going to do is we're gonna make it look like it's brick on the outside. How we're going to do that? So on the modify tool here, we're going to go to the geometry section. Excuse me. And we're going to use the split face tool. Okay. So we're going to click on split face, and we're going to click on the inside of this wall. It matters what side of the wall you click on, and we want to change the inside. So we're going to click on the inside of the wall. It's going to give us this outline in orange of what the wall looks like. And we want the parapet to be one material, and we want the bottom to be a different material, but they're all the same wall, right? When you click on it, it all has the same property. We're going to split the face, right? So we're going to click here, and we're going to follow the dotted line until it hits. Hit escape. Now we have the division, and I'm just going to hit enter. It doesn't look like anything changed, but what that allows us to do is come here to the paint tool, which is going to open in a different page. It's going to give us all these materials. And guess what? We can click on brick, and we can just come here and just paint the material, the section that we did. So this is going to paint the brick on that part. But if I come here and I use this temporary hide isolate so that we can look inside, it's the same wall, right? Same wall, but the top part of it looks like brick. And that's all we need. So I'm going to come here and reset my temporary hide. All right, let's go ahead and do that on all of these walls. So, oh, if I'm using the regular brick here, but if you're using a different brick, all you're going to have to do is go to Manage, Materials, and just like you loaded in the brick before, you're going to load it in here. So look up brick, pick up whatever brick you want, load it in, and that's going to allow you to use it in a paint tool. Okay. Well, let me just get back to doing this. So, and same thing here before, you can essentially pause, go do it yourself, or you can just follow along. I'm going to do it pretty quick. This thing is inconveniently in the way. Just move it around. There's nothing you can do really. Those walls were very convenient that they had that parapet peeking up. That was different for everything. These don't, but you can very easily just go to the side that you're using, and then just notice where the orange line begins and ends, and then just line it up with the grid line here. So boom, there's that one. And last one. Whenever you do something that you didn't mean to do, hit Control Z so you can go back. can also use escape to get out of a tool, or if you draw a line that you didn't mean to draw, and hit escape so they stop drawing. It controls you, so get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. Okay. Last one here. All right, this should be your end result. So essentially the whole parapet looks like it's made out of brick. Like I said, not completely correct. The wall is still the same wall that it was, but it just looks right. Now let's stop water from completely entering this building by making the final roof here. Now, same idea of making this roof. The slope's not going to be negative this time, but we're going to go to the tower. And here I can already see the walls. You might not be able to see these walls. I literally built this model from scratch just before I made this video, and it didn't show up. Now it is, but I'm going to show you what to do if it wasn't showing up. Right, you don't have to click on anything just by being in the tower view. You're going to scroll down to underlay, and it doesn't have any underlay. We're going to click, and we're just going to go click on the flat roof. That means they're going to be able to see everything that was on the flat roof, and then you're going to be able to draw. If you don't see this wall, you're going to still be able to see the wall that's underneath, right? Okay, next roof. Essentially same idea. So I'm going to click, draw a square here, and I know that only two sides have a slope, and the slope is very conveniently 9 inches over 12 inches. There's no offset. It is a wood rafter 8-inch asphalt single. So let's make sure that that's what we have. So wood rafter 8-inch asphalt single. And then one thing that's very important here that can be tricky and you have to pay attention to is if we look here, right? If we look at the east and the west, the roof perfectly lines up with the tower. So the sides that don't have a slope perfectly line up with the tower. The sides that do have a slope have an offset. They go out of the building, right? They have that overhang. And it's not using, in this case, it's not using the overhang tool, which is also an option. It is just a distance. Because it still starts at the tower level, it still starts at 25 feet, but it starts a foot, 4.5 inches away from the wall. So back to Revit, the sides that don't have, actually these are backwards. These don't have a slope, and then these have a slope. Okay, so the sides that have a slope are a foot, oh, look at that, a foot, 4.5 inches away. I just accidentally, oh, okay, I accidentally pulled the line away both sides to it. If you don't, whenever you pull the line, you can just click on that measurement because you already selected the line. There you go. Now, once we create this roof, take a peek in 3D. For some reason, it's already going to line up perfectly. Revit is very weird. It's probably doing all these things because I just created it. So it already knows, but I'm going to detach just so I can show you here. Hold on. You're always going to have these moments in Revit that you just like, what is happening? We're on the tower level. We'll look down to the flat roof. Tower. There's no offset. Zero offset. You might be finding it funny that I'm looking for these things. I created these drawings, so that's how confused you can get in Revit sometimes. Sometimes you know exactly what you're doing, and you're like, what is happening? Because Revit is just not cooperating. Should be a they're being weird. Oh, it's because, okay, my fault. I never said these walls. Look at this. It's just me making a mistake. I never said the walls should only go up to the tower. That's what it was. But now it makes sense. Okay, there we go. Okay, so wood rafter, 8 inches. Your walls are gonna look like this. And then the tool that you're gonna use is you're gonna click on the wall, and you're gonna use the attach tool, click on the roof, and that's gonna bring the roof, bring the wall up to whatever surface you have. So the roof here has this slope. It's gonna perfectly cut the line to match the roof. And last thing that you have to do is essentially do this to every wall. So drag across to select them all, and then you have it. There you have it. You're finished the first part of this model. The building's completely enclosed, and yeah. So little summary. Introduction to Revit. Hopefully you learned about wall assemblies, grids, levels, floors and ceilings, offsets, Revit being a pain. You're gonna go through that. But yeah, this is the first part. We'll see you guys for, I will show you guys the next part. You can probably just click on the next video. Okay, bye-bye.